So tonight, I've got something on my mind that I believe the Lord wants me to share with you. Just kind of encourage us in our walk with God, and just knowing how important these things are to God. It's also very important that we align ourselves. We're going to read the book of 1 Samuel chapter 15. I'm going to read 1 to 3, then I'm going to jump to 7 to 9, then I'm going to jump to 13 to 15, and I'm going to read 22 to 23. So 1 Samuel chapter 15, let's do 1 to 3 first. And Samuel said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people Israel. Now therefore listen to the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I have noted what Amalek did to Israel in opposing them on the way when they came out of Egypt. Now go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey." Now I'm going to jump to verse 7 to 9. Verse 7 to 9. And it says, "And Saul defeated the Amalekites from Avila as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive and devoted to destruction all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep and of the oxen and of the fattened calves and the lambs and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. All that was despised and worthless they devoted to destruction." See the difference between what he did and what God said to do? Yeah? You can see, okay. So I just wanted to point that out. Now verse 13 to 15. "And Samuel came to Saul and said to him, Blessed be you to the Lord. I have performed the commandments of the Lord. And Samuel said, What then is this bleating of the sheep in my ears, and the lowing of the oxen that are here? Saul said, They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and of the oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God. And the rest we have devoted to destruction." Let's jump to verse 22. "And Samuel said, As the Lord has great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord, behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king." I want to share tonight about the price of disobedience. The closer you get to God in your walk with God, the more you realize that every detail of any instruction He gives you matter. Every detail of it, to the last letter of that instruction. God's instructions are not suggestions, and they're not open to personal interpretation. So you must get clarity on what He is asking you to do and what He's asking you not to do. As we've just read, God gave, through Samuel, gave Saul an instruction: go and destroy everything in this city. Leave nothing alive. Like, destroy literally everything. But they went there and did the opposite. They spared the king, and they took all the best oxen and best sheep, and they justified it by saying, we're going to sacrifice this to God. And that was not what God asked him to do. Obedience is not doing what you think God said. It is doing what He said. I'm sharing this tonight because I understand how difficult it is sometimes to follow God in the climate and in the times that we live in. Because there is so many things that can literally take you off course if you're not diligent in following the Lord. If you're not diligent in understanding the voice of God and gaining clarity as to what exactly He has told you to do. There is a weight and responsibility attached to knowledge and revelation. I know sometimes people crave revelation, You will go from conferences to conference because you want revelation, but there is a weight and a responsibility attached to that. Because once you've heard it, you can't act like you didn't hear it. Once you know it, you can't say you didn't know it. So it's better actually not to know. It's better actually not to know, because if you must ask God to show you something or reveal something to you, you better be committed or ready to do it. Because if He show it to you and you don't do it, then you're in trouble. And that leads to what the Bible calls presumptuous sin. Presumptuous sin, I looked this up on Google. It said a sin that is committed willfully against manifest light and knowledge. You already have the light, you already have the knowledge. A sin of ignorance is not presumptuous because you don't know. Unless that ignorance is also willful. In which case the ignorance itself is a presumptuous sin. Unless you now choose not to know, even though you should know. This was a sin that Saul committed here, presumptuous sin. He willfully went against everything God told him to do. And he had good reasons to back it up, to justify his actions. James says, in the book of James chapter 4, verse 17, it says, whoever knows the right thing to do and fails not to do it, for him it is sin. Obedience to God, for me, is a powerful form of worship. As worship leaders, as people serve in the worship ministry, even as a Christian, we can get caught up in singing songs. I think that is really what worship is all about. But you can sing all the song and you can play all the music and everything. But if it's not coming from a life that is surrendered in obedience to God, it's noise. The first time worship was mentioned in the Bible was Genesis 22. And it was because a man decided to obey God by sacrificing his son. And he told his servant, we're going to go up there to worship. He called that worship. He wasn't singing any song. There was no band playing. There was no music. But obedience to him was, this is worship. This is a proper way to worship God. What we call good, God calls it evil when it is done in disobedience to him. That's what 1 Samuel 15:19 says. If we go back to 1 Samuel 15:19, it said, why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you pounce on the spoil and do what was evil in the sight of the Lord? They thought they were doing a good thing, but to God is evil. Disobedience has a price. Another example I want to share with you is Moses. You all know this story. God told him to speak to the rock and bring water out for the children of Israel. But the guy decided to, obviously they provoked him, then he smote the rock. But guess what? Water still came out. Blatantly in disobedience, the result was still produced. In the eyes of the children of Israel, he was a great guy. He was a good leader. He did what we asked him to do. The results were there to prove that he was a good leader. But between him and God, you're not going to enter the promised land. Because you did not honor me in the sight of the people. So no matter what we do, no matter how people view you on the outside, how they attribute success to you, the question is, does God see you like that? Because if what you're doing is in disobedience to him, it doesn't matter the amount of success it gets. It doesn't matter how many likes, how many views, how many money it makes you. It's still disobedience. The end cannot justify the means. I know people say that a lot, but the end cannot just, when it comes to walking with God, the end cannot justify the means. the means is as important as the end. To him, if he told you to kill everything in that city, you kill everything. Don't think you're smarter and think, okay, I would offer sacrifice. That's why I said God does not desire sacrifice. He desires obedience. What did I ask you to do? What did you do? Faithfulness to God is more important than success in the eyes of men. Because when Saul was confronted, he told Samuel, I did what God said. And when Samuel pressed him a little bit more, he said, well, guess what? These people made me do it. They thought, we could bring back the best of the oxen and the sheep and sacrifices to God. I did a podcast with a friend of mine, Sarah, and one of the things she said in that podcast is, one of our friends says, I would rather say yes to obedience than opportunities. Because the thing about opportunities is, especially you get to a point in life where you have the money, you have the relationship, and you don't think you need to ask God anymore. You can literally just go do it. Why do I need to talk to God? I have the money, I have the people. I can just flip my phone right now and call someone that can get it done. So as people who are in the worship ministry, let me bring this home to us. We don't have the right to change the assignment or the call of God on your life to what you're good at or what you do well. You don't have that right. If it tells you, go stand in the middle of the street and start singing, you don't have the right to now go sing in the studio and say, I'm not comfortable in the studio. Go sing on the street. That's what he told you. We don't have that right. That is disobedience. You might justify it by whatever reason. But if he told you, go stand in the middle of the street and be singing praise and worship, that's what he told you to do. So we cannot change it and say, yeah, this is how I'm comfortable doing this. What you're called to do or the assignment is given to you may not be the same thing as what you're good at. It may not. But he is asking for your obedience. Don't be smart. Don't start doing what you're good at or what you feel comfortable doing at the expense of what you're called to do. The reason why I believe sometimes we don't experience more of God or the glory of God or the fullness of the blessings of God is because we're not following his instructions. We're not doing what he said to do. We've become so smart, so clever. We think God doesn't really get it. So I need to educate God. You don't live in Ottawa. I live here. Let me show you how it's done in this city. I'm talking to myself too. So I'm not just talking at you. I mean, Ruth and I have various conversations at home, and one of them is what worship well should look like. What our conferences, how our worship night should look like. And when we talk about these ideas, they sound like great ideas, but eventually we're like, but that's not what God said to do. But they sound like great ideas. They sound like a good marketing strategy. Oh, this is going to sell out if you do this. Woo. And then we'll sell it out and we'll say, God gets the glory. Whoa, see, we packed up the venue. But somebody said something to me. He said, Tim, you can be globally in disobedience. You can be global and still be in disobedience. You can be globally in disobedience. So global doesn't mean it's not an endorsement of your behavior. It doesn't mean God endorses everything you're doing. Like Moses, the water still came out, even though he was acting in disobedience. So results, success is not always a good measure of God is with me or God approves of this. And that's why we've got to be very careful with social media. Some things we're clapping for, God is like, I'm telling you, that's why we've got to be careful. Social media sometimes, I think it's got some good stuff, but it's done a lot of damage to a lot of people. Because you get back home in your secret place, you know you missed it. And then you post and everybody's like, "Woo, go girl, you're killing it." But you know you missed it. I mean, it's something I'm learning, and it's always like, how do I get this right? How do I not veer off what God has told me to do? You know, I just finished reading the book I was starting with yesterday. It's called God's Generals. And it's all these heroes of faith, all these great men of God. A. Allen, Shambach, Catherine Kumar, all these crazy guys that did Smith Wigglesworth, that, slapping the devil out of people, raising the dead like no man's business. But one thing that was consistent out of all of them, most of them, is they step out of the boundaries of the call of God for their lives. They get to a point in their ministry that things were happening. All of a sudden, all the good ideas sounds like God's idea. And that started to derail their ministry. They started bringing things into it that was never meant to be in it. A man of God bumped into his friend at an airport, and it was like, "How's it going?" It was like, "Yeah, well, God has blessed me now. Our church is grown. We have money, we have resources, we have everything." And the man of God said, "Oh, that's good. Now go and ask God why He gave you all those in the first place. Because if you don't, you start to think I can do anything now. I can buy that building within a blink of an eye. We can do whatever, and you can be global at doing it. It will be like Samson. So let me shake myself up. Let me go again, not knowing God has left him." One thing that, David, the Bible says, a man after God's own heart. And when God was talking about David, one thing God said is, one of the reasons why God said he was a man after my heart is because He said he will do everything I command him to do. That's what made him one of the things God said of him. It wasn't just because he's a skillful musician, he's a good, it's a guy who can fight wars and everything. It's because he knows that this guy, I can trust him with instructions. He will get it done the way I told him to do it. And because of that, I want him. It's a man after my own heart. That was the difference between David and Saul. And David, when he missed it, because he did, what was his first response? He tried to shift the blame, but then when Nathan caught him, he repented. But Saul blamed the people. He even told Samuel, "Come and honor me before the people." That's all I have to share tonight, but I just wanted us to look through your life, look through your soul. What are you doing right now? And is that what God has asked you to do? If you said yes, is that how He's asked you to do it? Because at the end of the day, what matters most is that we will hear, "Well done." Not that good and successful servant. Not that good and famous servant. Not that good and trending servant. It's that good and faithful servant. And how faithfulness is to the extent you execute and you do what He's asked you to do, the way He's asked you to do it. That's why some people will, on the last days, they will say, "We did this in your name, we prophesied in your name, we healed the sick in your name, we cast out demons in your name." And it will say, "Depart from me, I don't know you." That doesn't make sense to me. How can you do all that? You did all these miraculous things, and all you moved mountains, you shaked heavens, and then Jesus said to you, "Depart from me, I don't know who you are." The Bible says that the Lord knows those who are His. It's one thing to claim you know God, but does He know you? It's one thing. Anybody can say, "I know God" in this place, but does God know you? Can God boast about you like He boasted about David and say, "I know that girl, she would do everything I tell her to do. I know that man, she would do everything I tell him to do. Even if it makes him look stupid, even if it makes him look foolish, he or she would rather be foolish before men than to be disobedient to me."